Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to go over LTCN BCHG and HZEN and how LTCN is really coiling up to have a big move here shortly. We're also going to go over the FEPI ETF, which is the REC shares and their dividend distribution that they had today. So with that being said, let's get it. So first thing I want to show you guys is the portfolio. We actually do have shares of FEPI, as you guys can see. So we have 8.34 shares. That is expected to pay us $9.92 for the month of February. And if we go over here, you guys can see we actually had to wait a little while for this information to populate. We thought that it probably wasn't going to populate until after market close, and that's exactly what happens. So $1.19 per share. There's a lot of consistency here. So this is the declaration date, basically the day letting you guys know what you're going to get paid. The actual ex-dividend date, which is the last date to get in, is on the 26th. Unfortunately, the 26th is on Monday. As you guys know, markets close on Friday. I should say the stock markets anyways, close on Friday. So technically today was your last day to get in before the ex-dividend date. And then the payment date will be on the 28th, which is next Wednesday. Something I also want to point out, as you guys can see, the current price is $56.40. The price has been pretty, through the ups and the downs, it's been very stable. It hasn't really gone much of anywhere. It's kind of been vacillating between 55 and 57. So that's definitely a good sign, because I know a lot of you are worried about NAV erosion and stuff like that. So anyways, let's get into the grayscale trusts. So here's LTCN. You guys can see there is still a risk here of a potential MACD bear or death cross, but we haven't had that yet. So here's the coiling part. So I want you guys to notice this. So we kind of were squeezing into this support. We had this big pop up, and then all of a sudden we just really blasted to the blasted off to the upside after that. Took a couple weeks, but we eventually got up there, and it was a huge move. But then the price came back down. Apparently this was a fake out. Usually markets don't confirm above a resistance level and then fake out like that very often. That's pretty rare, actually. So unfortunately it did happen, and then we basically just back tested the EMAs. We had kind of this triple tweezer bottom here, and then we've slowly been moving up. But here's the interesting part. So we're literally coiling in between the top two EMAs here, or the top one EMA at this point, and the resistance zone. Usually when this happens, that means that there is an imminent move, an imminent breakout move that might be coming here shortly. We can more clearly define it with this trend line here. You guys can see that it's kind of stuck in between the trend line or the EMAs and the resistance. It's a very small price area, so $12 to $15. That's not a very big area. I would say if this thing breaks down, probably expect it to go somewhere between $7 to about $8.50 per share. I would say that's probably realistic. However, if it breaks out to the upside, probably expect it to go up to, I would say, as high as $27 a share. That's a massive move, even from current prices. That is roughly about, well, let's actually measure it. Let's measure and find out exactly what this is. So that's roughly about a 110% move, or a little bit more than a 2x. So basically, if you put like $1,000 in, you'll get like $1,100. That is if it goes up to that zone. If it does not, well, I mean, there's no guarantee it's going to go up. Let's just put it like that. So that's LTCN. Now let's get into HZEN. So this thing is looking more and more bullish, as you can see here. Although I would say after this massive move to the upside here, I would be a little cautious to get into this. We have not gotten back in, just so y'all know, after we took that scalp trade, which wasn't really meant to be a scalp trade. It just kind of turned out that way. So the RSI here is massively overbought. It's almost at a 90, and the shade of green is like really obvious. We've actually never even had this, so because there's not enough history to go on here. So I would say that's a clear warning flag. Plus, this thing moved up nearly 170% in 2 weeks. It doesn't mean it can't go higher. Of course, it can always go higher, but do keep in mind we did have this pullback. Basically, See this wick top here kind of lines up with these wicks all the way over to the left during the March swing high of the further downward movement here during the bear market. If we get caught at that level for another week, I would say there's a possibility we could pull back into this support zone here. I would expect the next candle to be red if that is going to happen and at least close below this resistance zone. So I would say immediate buy zone is probably going to be between 250 to 290 as a starting point. Obviously, this one is not resistance. Sorry about that, fellas. So, and then as low as 150 to $2. Resistance is 380 to 420. I would say the likely scenario is it pulls back and it comes into this support zone here. So we'll just assume you got in at that zone. You could be taking a look at potentially as much as 70%. So BCHG, this one is actually very similar to LTCN, believe it or not. It's not exactly like LTCN, but there's quite a bit of similarity here. I would say it's kind of stuck around those top two EMAs, top EMA, this trend line and resistance. And of course, we had a confirmed breakout and then a fake out, very similar to LTCN. So we'll kind of just have to wait and see how this one plays out. I mean, you guys can get in at your own risk at this level. That's entirely up to you. Your buy areas would be somewhere between 314 to 358. Us personally, we're going to wait to buy more, so between 250 to about 275 per share. So there's two potential scenarios that could play out here. It breaks down, potentially tests these EMAs. I suspect it's probably going to get stopped here. Main reason being it was resistance for a long time, and as you guys can see, we have all these wicks here indicating that there is buying pressure just right above that support, so probably going to get stopped here. If it breaks down, if it breaks out, we're going to go up to this resistance zone, which we have not gone to yet. So we'll just do the measured moves real quick. If you got in now and it did have a breakout, let's just say hypothetically, you could be taking a look at as much as 75%. And we'll also do the inverse here. If you decided to get in at these levels and it had a breakdown, it'd pull back as much as 30%. Of course, that's a good buying opportunity. If I was going to play this and get in now, I would not put everything in all at once. I would slowly either make like smaller bulk buys. Like let's say if I was going to put in, I don't know, $2,000, I would put in like every 50 cents it went lower, I'd put in like $200 or something like that. Or you could just DCA in it. It's entirely up to you, but that's how I would do it. But if it came back down to this zone here where we intend to buy, the potential profit could be about 125%. So GXLM still trying to hold up here. It's possible it could go back up. This rising wedge has been confirmed bearish, but we're still not below the EMA. So I would say probably buying somewhere in between 1450 to 19 would probably be your best bet. Not financial advice, but if you manage to get it in there, just to the most local peak, it'd be roughly about 92%. And if you manage to get it halfway in there to the swing high here, you're looking at roughly about 200%. And keep in mind that this thing, we're not even at the halving or in the bull market yet, and this thing already almost reached previous all-time highs, which is at $95. That's not even a 2x from that swing high. So that's something to keep in mind. But other than that, there's not really much to go on the charts here. The macro supports between $4 and basically about $12. Macro resistance between 52.60 and 58.10. So ETH still looking very bullish. Of course, Ethereum's very bullish. We'll actually zoom out here a little bit so you guys can see this bearish divergence going on. So the price and the MACD are moving up, but you can kind of see, even if we move this down a little bit, you can kind of see that it is slightly still trending down here. So that is some kind of bearish divergence. Now, if the MACD just absolutely starts beasting to the upside straight into overbought territory, then obviously not really a confirmation on the bearish divergence there. It's just meant to serve as a warning sign that potentially a reversal might be coming. I'm going to reiterate once again, I would not be buying at these levels. If I was going to buy, I would buy down here between somewhere basically between $15 to roughly about $18.20, but you guys can do as you please. So the macro support is 230 to 450, and then of course our buy zones are $15 to roughly about $18. So anywhere from that $2 to 18 is a good price in my opinion. And macro resistance is between $25.50 to $29. Let's say you got it at this zone, you'd be looking at potentially 65% in the immediate short term. You got it at the EMAs. It would potentially be as much as 82% in the immediate short term. So the all-time high price here is $68. So that's roughly about 2.5x from the current price. It's a pretty good return, but not as good as something like LTCN. But do keep in mind, Ethereum's probably going to go to new all-time highs. I'd say Ethereum itself will probably do like 10, maybe 12, 15,000, something like that on this cycle. It sounds super bullish, but I would not be surprised if it did Bitcoin's previous all-time high, or not this cycle, but the one before that where it hit 20K. If Ethereum hits 20K, that could be like the super bullish scenario. And then, of course, ETH will go up even higher. Maybe like $100, $150 a share, something like that, I would say is probably reasonable. So ETH Classic, still stuck in the zone. Not really doing much. I would say this is potentially a breakout scenario, but again, this is very similar to BCHG and LTCN. It is coiling up, stuck in between resistance and support. If we were going to buy, we'd buy roughly at about $10. Your macro support is between $3 and $5, and macro resistance between 13 to 16. Do keep in mind the other indicators have had death crosses, so there is that. If Bitcoin pulls back substantially, which it looks like it is right now, but if it continues, this price could roll over and start dumping to the downside. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at these charts. So if we take the measured move here from the EMAs to the previous swing high, that's a 65% move. That's still pretty good. For us, that would be four swing trades total in the traditional markets. You can see the previous all-time high here is at $97, so that's a massive move from current prices. It's roughly like a 7x, 8x, somewhere in there. It's pretty good, I would say. So Zcash, this one just recently had a massive pop to the upside. Kind of surprised us, to be honest. Wasn't expecting it. Because Zcash is kind of like a second mover. So Bitcoin moves first, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then you get your second movers like LTCN and BCHG. Well, I guess maybe this would be a third mover, but like a second, third mover. And then once you get Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin, then something like Zcash, Dash, Bitcoin Gold, those kinds of things tend to move after that. So early mover here, very bullish looking candle. It's above pretty much almost all of the previous wicks, and the body closes here. Could potentially go higher, but we are not out of the resistance zone yet. So kind of potentially a buy zone for I would say a potential launch pad to go higher. If we just go ahead and measure out the next resistance zone, you're looking at roughly somewhere around, I'd say somewhere around there. So potentially as high as maybe like about $5 a share. So macro support, roughly about $1.40 to $1.80. Current support, I'm going to call this support now, even though it hasn't broken out above the zone yet. $2.75 to $4, and then you have about basically $4.40 to $5. So another thing to keep in mind, the EMAs might be about ready to have a golden cross. When you see them curling up like this, that's a very bullish sign. That's not a guarantee. That's just what the charts are saying right now. So you could be taking a look at as much as 47 to potentially as much as 88% on this move. Do keep in mind the previous peak is quite a ways up there. So you got $40. It's at less than $4 now. So potentially a 10x, maybe even more if Zcash goes up to new all-time highs. GSOL still smashing to the upside. Not really surprised. Everybody's bullish on Solana. Again, I would not touch this with a 10-foot pole if it was me. I mean, the MACD is just look at how far above the break-even level the MACD is. This thing is a whopping 40 points above break even. I would just simply would not touch this, not at these levels. So if I was going to buy, I'd buy somewhere between, I would say, probably about $80 to maybe about 130, somewhere in there. So your support is between 80 to, I'm just gonna go on a limb here and say 130. I want to say roughly about 105, but there's no guarantee it's going to come back down that low. And then the support that we're at currently is 180 to 202, and the macro resistance is at 270. Keep in mind this thing is in price discovery, so we'll just say you got it at $110 a share, and you could be taking a look at as much as, I'd say, roughly about 150% or so is what that looks like. Okay, 140%. That's still a good move. So Mana is looking like it potentially wants to have a breakout here, but there's no confirmation yet. Even though this is a green bullish candle and it is above the previous candle highs, it still has not broken this line here. You guys can see that we have drawn. It's supposed to be kind of like a range, so to speak. As you guys can see, it's kind of been bobbing around in that area between the EMAs and resistance, but it has not broken out of resistance yet. So the macro support is 160 to 370, macro resistance 1750 still to 2020, I'd say 2030. If I was going to buy this, I'd look to buy at the bottom of this range because it's not out of the range yet. So somewhere between 1050 to about 1280 per share. Let's see what the measured move on that is. You could be taking a look at as much as roughly about, I'd say, 130% on this. So GBAT clearly has had a breakout. As you guys can see, this downtrend line, we had a confirmed breakout here that's very bullish. Sellers might be sitting up here at 970. We'll just have to wait and see. But if I was going to buy, I'd buy between 440 to about 508. You could buy as low as 380. It's entirely up to you. You can see that the MACD is about ready to basically go from a fake out death cross to a confirmed golden cross, and also the RSI. So we'll do the measured move on that. You get it in the zone, and it swings all the way back to the high. That's 105%. That does not include any potential for price discovery, which obviously, as you guys can see, in December, it already basically hit a price discovery. So there's that. G-Link's in price discovery, but I would not be buying this all the way at the top here. There's lots and lots of opportunities in crypto, guys. Remember, in the actual crypto space, with the Grayscale Trust, there's like maybe a dozen and a half. But you also have the Bitcoin miner stocks, and you have actual native cryptocurrencies, which range in hundreds, if not thousands, of different tokens. So when one of these is just looking super expensive, we, generally speaking, tend to look at something that's cheaper, even though I know everybody wants to FOMO into the hottest coin, all that stuff, right? But that's a good way to get trapped and get dumped on by the whales. Trust me, I know. I've been there. We've been there. Okay. So, anyways, the current support zone is $40 to about 45. Macro support is $7 to about $10. We would probably buy somewhere around in between these two EMAs here in the support zone. And then your swing high is going to be about $95. This is on the Chainlink Grayscale Trust. So your move could be potentially as much as 126% in the immediate short term. Now, I did say that we were going to do fibs and also Bollinger Bands. We will do that, but we're not going to do that yet. We don't want to do it until we get into the actual bull market, meaning Bitcoin has already been past its previous all-time highs. So we're going to go ahead and wait on that, because I would say that's probably the most prevalent time to use it when prices are getting extreme. So Phil G is looking very bullish. If we were going to buy, we would probably buy somewhere between, I'd say, $38 a share to about 51. It's obviously just keeps on ripping to the moon. This thing's just gone absolutely bonkers. So your swing high is about $118. Here's your support zones, 37 to about 41, and then the macro one is roughly about $6 to $12. So if you manage to get it somewhere down here, you'd be looking at roughly about almost a 200% gain. GLIV, this one is potentially getting ready to ramp up to move higher. Although keep in mind, we do still have this bearish divergence going on here. And the MACD might be having a death cross. So we would buy somewhere in the zone, roughly about 12 to 15 bucks. The swing high here is at $29 or so. And then roughly about 192, 380 on the macro support. So your move could be as much as, I'd say roughly about 135 to 140%. Anyways, this is the our weekly update. This is the market close update also for the grayscale trusts, mainly LTCN BCHG and HZEN, and also the dividend announcement from FEPI. Hope you all enjoy this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.